So what is going on with the tight end position with the Miami Dolphins? As you know, Mike Gesicki is getting ready for the 2023 football season up in New England with Bill Belichick. And then in the draft, the Miami Dolphins didn't seem to address the tight end position whatsoever. They had the opportunity to pick Darnell Washington from Georgia, didn't do it. They did select Elijah Higgins late in the draft, but he's not really a tight end, more of a hybrid wide receiver / tight end, so I'm not sure he's going to fill that need. And then I saw this article by Chris Perkins from the Sun Sentinel where he penned an article addressing the Miami Dolphins tight end position. We're going to take a look at that and go over some of the details in it, and maybe you and I will learn and have some edification about what's going on with the tight end position. Let's jump into that article. So here's Chris Perkins' article with the long title, "The Dolphins Don't Necessarily Want a Receiving Tight End. I Understand That Now." Well, I'm glad you understand it because I don't, and I know many other people don't either. So let's jump into some of the text in this article. So I come down here and it says, Coach Mike McDaniel said it recently, and offensive coordinator Frank Smith reiterated it, that the Dolphins want their tight ends to play to their strengths. Well, Mike Gesicki was a receiving tight end. His strength was receiving. Did you not want him to play to his strength? That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. So further down, we say you need them to do what they already walked in the door good at. Gesicki was a receiving tight end. He walked in the door as a good receiving tight end. Or in their minds, their strengths. That was Mike Gesicki's strength, so that they can continue to develop something that is confident in their game. Does that make any sense to you? They're looking for somebody who's strong at what their strengths are. They were looking for a tight end who could play to their strengths. Mike Gesicki was a receiving tight end, so that doesn't really make any sense to me. Let me know if that makes sense to you. I mean, it says it right there. You need them to do what they already walked in the door good at, meaning they didn't want to go ahead and have to develop anybody and change the way they were playing so that they can continue to develop something that is confident in their game. Makes no sense whatsoever, a bunch of word salad to me. Let's continue. The Dolphins, by design, have a collection of inline, or rather, what's called a blocking tight end. Knowing that, it's become apparent that the Dolphins' number 3 wide receiver, the person who gets targeted after wide receivers Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle, won't be a tight end. Rather, it will likely be a wide receiver or running back. So it seems as though Mike McDaniel is just getting away from the San Francisco Shanahan model completely and just going with a third wide receiver or a third option for Tua Tagovailoa being another wide receiver or running back. We'll see. Let's go down further. The Dolphins will roll with veteran Durham Smythe as their starting tight end, and he'll be backed up by 2 or 3-man group that could include Tanner Conner, Tyler Kroft, Eric Saubert, and rookie draftee Elijah Higgins and undrafted rookie Julian Hill. There's no way they keep all those players. Maybe some of them go on the practice roster, but that's probably going to get, whittled down to 2 or 3 people. The Dolphins, of course, and this is what really got me. The Dolphins, of course, had Mike Gesicki, a receiving tight end last season, but he departed to New England during free agency. He didn't depart. The Dolphins just said, hey, we don't need you. We don't want you. And so he signed with New England. In one season and one coaching change, Gesicki, who wasn't an accomplished blocker, became a square peg for a round hole. But I thought you said you wanted a tight end that played to their strengths. He was a receiver. That's why that first statement didn't make any sense to me. So he had to go. For a while, I thought the Dolphins wanted a receiving tight end, just not Gesicki. I think we all thought that. Here's the thing I had in my mind all of last season, and this is what I had in my mind, and I'm sure many Dolphins fans had in their minds as well. McDaniel presided over an offense in San Francisco that included all-world tight end George Kittle, an accomplished blocker, and an even better receiver. Kittle is an offensive weapon. McDaniel has an innovative, creative offensive mind. I assume McDaniel would seek the same versatility and playmaking in his tight ends with the Miami Dolphins. Why did that not happen? Why did he not utilize Mike Gesicki to become like a George Kittle? Why did he not go out and find a tight end that was like George Kittle? It just doesn't make any sense to me. It's something that's been bothering me since the draft, and it still hasn't been answered. Let's continue. And this is, at this point, Frank Smith talking. We're fortunate enough for our wide receiver position. You know, we have a lot of guys there. Yeah, they sure do. So, I mean, it's using guys to their strengths, what they do well, and spring is that time where you can really work on those aspects. Now, that just doesn't make any sense to me. Well, let's just talk about it. That's a lot of word salad, a lot of stuff going back and forth, playing to strengths and all this stuff. You got rid of your tight end. One way or another, Mike Gesicki had to leave. He wasn't blocking the way you wanted him to block, but he sure could catch. He sure made a hell of a catch in the Ravens game, didn't he? Absolutely. Terrible dancing at all. He was a pass-catching tight end. I think he could have developed into something that could have been a real viable asset for Tua, especially on those third down plays when you had to have a first down and they were locking up the wide receivers late in the season. But I digress. Let's continue with this article. In other words, the wide receivers are better receivers than the tight end. True. Whose strength is blocking, so the Dolphins will play to each position's strengths. This is, again, just a bunch of word salad. It doesn't mean anything. Down here it says, Frank Smith, with our offense, blocking is as important as receiving. We don't necessarily just focus on one aspect of the skill set. We focus on a complete part of the skill set, so pass protection, run blocking, and route running are very important to the Dolphins' offensive scheme. So which player in the tight end room right now satisfies all that? One who can receive, one who can block, and one who can run routes. Durham Smythe, if that was the case, he would have been playing last year, but he wasn't. So I don't get the word salad that they're trying to put together here and say what they're going to do, unless they're just going to go with a fly track team wide receiver set, put the Von A-Chain out there and use him in different kinds of sets. But it doesn't seem like they're taking the tight end situation and really putting some emphasis on it. Let's go back to the article. This is Perkins talking. In the big picture, it doesn't matter whether the Dolphins prefer a receiving tight end, a blocking tight end, or a combination tight end. Why? Why does it not matter? What matters is that the Dolphins get their desired player for the job, and it appears that the player right now is Durham Smythe. So my question remains, if you're looking for an accomplished, proven blocker, someone who can run routes, and someone who can pass protect, if you had that in Durham Smythe, why wasn't he playing more last year? If he was the guy and you knew that going in, why are there 5 or 6 other tight ends in the room right now? Doesn't make any sense. And let me know if it makes sense to you. Let's continue with this article. My issue last season was the offense became predictable late in the year. Many of us said that. Many of us said by the time they got to the end of the season, it was extremely predictable and almost scripted, and it did seem like Tua was throwing the spots. But even Chris Perkins recognizes that if he could see it as being predictable, if I could see it as being predictable, what do you think defensive coordinators around the league thought? So he continues. It became basically a throw to Hill, throw to Waddle, and repeat. And getting Gesicki and the run game more involved could have helped. Duh, absolutely. Yes, Gesicki had some crucial late season drops, but he was your best number 3 offensive option. I agree. So if Gesicki was the team's best number 3 option at the end of the season and he wasn't being utilized, Durham Smythe's going to pick up that slack? I just don't see it. I mean, I hope, I definitely hope as a Notre Dame grad, I'm a fan of his. Gesicki wasn't utilized to his fullest potential at the end of the season. It was almost like they had already phased him out and they were looking to move forward with somebody else. But he was the most viable number 3 receiver. Had some drops, but that doesn't mean that he's less of a viable tool for Tua Tagovailoa in the offense. So you've removed your best number 3 option. He's gone. And you're replacing him with Durham Smythe. So as he closes this article, it just made me again kind of chuckle and wonder what the hell's going on. The tight ends on the roster have the skill set the Dolphins desire. I understand that now. What do you understand? I don't get it. They said they want route runners. They said they want someone who could actually, protect Tua. They said they want someone who can block. And they said that they wanted an accomplished blocker. You don't have any of those right now. So we're all supposed to just nod along and say, okay, we're happy with the tight end room. Good job, Mike. Good job, Frank. Let's see what happens. I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer with this, but do you think that Durham Smythe and the other cast of characters that they brought in are going to be sufficient? Why didn't they go out and get Darnell Washington? Why didn't they get a good tight end? Why didn't they trade for a good tight end? Why didn't they sign a big tight end in free agency? I guess you could say they treated the tight end position very similar to that, how they treated the offensive line. Just didn't do anything about it. So unless Tyreek and Waddle and Chosen and some of these other guys they have out there, Easy E, are just going to just blaze the entire field and Tua's going to sit back and be able to pick defenses apart, that's what you're saying. You're saying that there wasn't a premium on the offensive line and there wasn't a premium on the tight end position, and you've got Tua sitting back there looking for a viable outlet on third down and a viable offensive line to protect them, and you're going to hope that Devon A-Chain could be a decent outlet, but he's not blocking anybody. The guy's 5'8". That's not going to happen. So 5 guys plus your tight end up front, 6 guys, and it's still a question mark in June. Do you agree? You disagree? Or are you just going to say, hey, Mike McDaniel knows what he's doing? I hope he knows what he's doing, because right now, that offensive line, I understand that Butch Berry thinks that Austin Jackson and Liam Eichenberg are getting better, and you now say you want Durham Smythe to be that guy at the tight end position, but past performance, I hope it doesn't indicate future performance. Let me know what you think. Fins up.
Is anybody catching on to this Barry guy?